You know, guys, it's really screwed up when the woman who is 8 months pregnant is actually more alpha than the person she's going against.
However, then I thought, well, wait a second. If the biggest donors at, say, Harvard have decided, well, we're going to shut it down now, where were you the last 10 years when they were calling for white genocide? You were allowing this. And then I found myself really hating those people, actually. That you're okay with that? On what grounds were you okay with that?
And this is what I've been trying to explain to the pro-Israel lobby, that what you are seeing as lack of support is people that are asking the question is, where were you as we have endured all of this?
You were paying for it, actually.
Right.
You were paying for it.
Well, guys, I did tell you that I was going to be following up on this issue. Of course, that issue being Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. Now, guys, I started working on this video last night, and then I realized that there were a couple more things to gather. And of course, there's some things from the actual past. And of course, in the previous video, I talked more about, let's just say exactly how it was that we got to this point. So in the past, I'd say a year or so, Candace has shared a link. Well, not really a link, but she defended Kyrie Irving for sharing a link to a film. She, and by the way, this right here is not designed to go after Candace at all. I'm just saying that Candace is definitely the person who I think is a little bit more justified in this situation. And don't worry, we'll get to Ben in a second. She's also defended Kanye West. And of course, the Daily Wire did Ben Shapiro in particular. He, of course, has gotten a little bit irritated with this, hence the reason why it was that he got caught on camera the other night. And quite frankly, I don't think he cared, but still at the same time, we haven't got anything out of him for the exception of some good old-fashioned mean tweets, which we'll get to here in a second. But let me go ahead and refresh you guys on what happened.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. She still works for my company. And I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues.
Of course, Candace would then go on Tucker Cross, and we'll get to that here in a second. But of course, Candace, she's tweeted out there, look, blessed be the peacemakers, therefore they are the actual children of God. I'm not very good at reading things verbatim. And of course, Ben Shapiro, he decides to respond with something basically saying that if the money that you collect comes between you and God, then please quit. Kind of jacked up when you actually think about it. But then again, though, I have to also remind people who Ben is. But don't worry, we'll get to that here in a second. Candace, of course, she responded back basically saying, look, man, you have been completely, you've been unhinged. You have been unprofessional. We've had to sit here and we've had to endure this for a while. Now, if you've been watching my content, especially since the Gaza war started, the war between Hamas and Israel, then you guys will already know exactly where I line up at. And you probably would think to yourself that I would be siding with Ben here, but that's not exactly the case. My personal feeling on this situation is that we can walk and chew gum at the exact same time. We've got massive anti-whiteism at college campus. We've got massive anti-whiteism pretty much everywhere, which I'm going to start talking more about on this channel because I have had people request that I do so. And then, of course, to go on top of this, you've got the border issue. And then, of course, you've got what I'm showing you right now in the B-roll footage, which is funny because Ben did, in fact, tweet about this, saying that the enemies were basically at the doorstep, which is something I've been saying for a while. Now, these people who were protesting, these people who are outside the Democratic headquarters in Washington, D.C., it's not the DNC, but the Democratic Party headquarters in Washington, D.C. This was the result of good old-fashioned identity politics, which we'll be discussing on Sunday, because I want to use some of these to kind of show you that this is the end result of those identity politics that the left has been pandering to, or the Democratic Party has been pandering to. But we'll get to that on Sunday. Fact of the matter is that the enemy is, in fact, at the gates. We've got people all over the place. We have got people that we do not know where they came from coming across the border. Biden has left it completely wide open. He's not sent anybody down there. So when Candace Owens talks about the border issue, and she talks about the enemies actually being within a nation, she's not lying. She's telling the truth. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. I have said that what you need to do is put one fleet out in the Mediterranean and one fleet out there in the Gulf War just to simply keep Iran and to keep Syria on the sidelines to keep it from escalating any further. I am very, very much in favor of Israel doing what they're doing, but I'm not okay with killing kids and stuff. But I also understand that Israel lost some kids too. It looks to me like this is exactly what I've been saying the entire time. It's called war. These type of things do, in fact, happen during war. And I'm no warmonger or anything like that, but I understand the complexities that innocent people do, in fact, get hurt. The first casualty of any war is, in fact, the truth. Which is funny because a lot of people right now are taking what Ben Shapiro said and they're thinking to themselves, well, he was 100% right to say this. Candace has been disgraceful. When in reality, Candace, for the most part, has just simply been asking questions. I mean, the other night she had somebody on, she had a Jewish comedian on, and I'm just going to give you guys a bit of a brief highlight here. Candace, I think she's justified to ask the question.
Okay, well, can you answer why Jews are so special? Because as white people in this country on university campuses, we are being taught that we are not allowed to have a voice. We have had to endure exactly what you're talking about, BLM. We've endured much worse than you have because it's in the actual textbooks. We are being told that we are systematically racist, that we are born wrong because of the color of our skin. And if we say anything, we'll lose everything. This is the typical experience on white campuses. So people, this is not whataboutism. This is like actually what we have been fighting for years. So it sort of arrived.
Now, in no way, shape, or form does that right there seem like it is anti-Semitic at all. I do not believe that it is, even though YouTube may think that it is. They'll probably limit the ads on the video, which is okay because I've got a couple more videos coming out this weekend that I don't think will be as, let's just say I think it'll be a little more advertiser friendly. Candace, I think the fact that she's, for the most part, much newer to conservatism. If you guys remember her past, at one time she was on the left. She was also red pill black. And then Mark Dice brought up something the other day that, quite frankly, I had completely forgot about, which I'll try to link this video in the description box as well. Candace was actually at InfoWars at one time. It was really kind of her first real exposure. I thought that was kind of odd. I didn't even know about that, and I've done some research on her, and I somehow know that this part completely evaded me. Maybe I should just learn to do better research. My apologies. If I'd have known this before, I would have brought it in previous videos. And I have made videos on her, being a little bit critical of her and also praising her. My rule is this right here. I will praise you when you get something right, and of course, I will hit you when you do something wrong. Or I will call you out. Not physically hit, okay? But still, I'm pretty sure you guys know where I'm going with this. But I have to remind people all the time who think that Ben Shapiro is a friend to them as far as like your friend in Christ or whatnot. Let me go ahead and kind of remind you where he really and truly stands.
We don't believe in the divinity of Christ. I think that there you can make an argument that the Gospels, which were written...
He was just a prophet.
Right? No. We don't even believe he was a prophet.
What do you think he was? What do you guys think he was?
What do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble. Just like a lot of other Jews at that time who were crucified for trying to lead revolts against the Roman and got killed for their trouble.
So he became legend in story, and it became a bigger and bigger deal as time went on.
Yeah, he had a group of followers, and then that gradually...
So stop thinking for a second that Ben Shapiro is some Christ lover or anything like that. The guy's like, I'm a Christian, okay, and I'm not making fun of Ben's religion or anything, but Ben, at the end of the day, is always going to show you who he is, that he's more Israel first than he is America first. That's just the truth of the matter. And I think you can kind of balance out both and do it a proper way. But, of course, we've been seeing Ben Shapiro be absolutely, completely insufferable to the point to where now he's bashing coworkers behind what he thought would be a closed-door meeting. But somebody obviously recorded this and posted it to TikTok. Not exactly a good look for Ben. And, of course, you got Candace. Well, Candace, as I mentioned before, she has been asking more and more questions. She is basically saying, look, what about us? What about people? What about white people? And of course, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, she's black. Why should she care about this? Well, Candace is married to a white guy. She does have one child already by him, and she's about to have another. She's about to have another child. She's 8 months pregnant. So I don't think her concerns are not valid. Let me kind of break this down for you. I know people, one of the reasons why is I've chosen to speak more about the anti-whiteism stuff is because it's starting to make its way into our classrooms. If you go on Twitter, you see a lot of attacks. You see a lot of people get hurt. You see a lot of people get jumped. You just had this boy get jumped in the state, I think it was in the state of Nevada, where he was actually killed by a group of teens that were not exactly white. I got to kind of watch the way I say it here. The anti-whiteism is out of control. And I think Candace is right to be concerned about this. I think a lot of people are, in fact, right to be concerned about it. Like I said, you can be pro-Israel, but also pro-America at the exact same time. I think that Ben is perturbed at the fact that she is basically saying what it is that she wants. But then again, though, there is something else here that I do think needs to be discussed, which I think is probably making the situation a lot worse, at least as far as Ben is concerned. But before we get into all that there, let me go ahead and kind of break down a little bit further how this entire video is going to go. I'm going to be running two separate, it's actually three separate little clips that came from the Tucker Carlson special, which he had with Candace Owens the other night. I'm going to be responding and reacting to a good portion of this. Right? We're going to come back on the other end, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think is really and truly going on at the Daily Wire as far as this situation right here is, in fact, concerned. And one more thing, too, and I need to put this out here. To Shapiro, 99% of the time, I agree with Mr. Shapiro on the issues. This thing right here that's going on right now, I think he's gone completely crazy. But then again, at the same time, I have also said before that I don't really care for him that much as a person because I have always believed that he was controlled opposition. We will have a video on that in the near future explaining what controlled opposition is, in which he will probably be a big part of the example that I will use. With that rather being said, let's go ahead and get this first clip.
Disgraceful, particularly a coworker, seems like a pretty big step. What? And I really don't know the background here. What is that about?
You know, there isn't much of a background. I saw the video when everybody else saw it when I woke up.
No one warned you about it.
Nobody warned me about it. It looks like maybe he didn't know he was being recorded. It looks like it was some sort of a private event. I got no clarity on the issue that he was particularly speaking on. And in what was said, I can't respond to it beyond what he's saying because it's just ad hominem attacks. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not, we disagree or I don't think she's correct or maybe she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can't respond to it on a level of intellect because there's nothing. I'm not going to respond with the same ad hominem attacks. Yes. I don't think it helps further discussion. And if that was me that was caught on a video saying that about colleagues that I work with, I would be embarrassed. So I think that the video speaks more to Ben's character than it speaks to mine.
Has he texted you to apologize or explain or anything?
No, nothing. I haven't heard a single word. It just was sort of something that he said. And you know what? Ben and I have many disagreements, so I don't think that that's particularly something that's interesting. We disagreed on the COVID vaccine. We disagree on Ukraine and Russia. He has taken virtually every stance that has been the opposite of mine on every issue over the last 5 years. So I don't think that that's particularly remarkable.
Vaccine. Really, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, he was pro the COVID vaccine. I was anti the vaccine. We were all idiots for not getting the vaccine. So that's totally fine. I am totally open to people having a difference in opinion.
Right.
I would hope that amongst colleagues that it would always be a civil disagreement. Pro pharma, his mom's a doctor. And I say to people, I'm very aware of my perspectives on Big Pharma, and I talk about it on my show openly. And I think that that's a tremendous credit to the Daily Wire that they allow a difference of opinions. But I as I said, hope that it would remain respectful and that you wouldn't throw your colleagues under a bus, so to speak.
I think that's fair. And just for clarity, because I really don't know, is he your boss? Does he?
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about Ben's involvement. He's not the CEO of the Daily Wire. He is not making the day decisions at the Daily Wire. And I do want to make it very clear because people are like, how could you possibly save Daily Wire after this? I have a very good relationship with the co-CEOs of the Daily Wire. Especially right now, the acting CEO is Caleb Robinson. He's a wonderful person. He's worked very hard to be where he's at.
So in her response to the criticism, as you guys can see, she's basically saying that she reacted to it like everybody else. I don't think that's really truly the case. I think what happened was that somebody gave her a heads up. She looked at it, and then she probably sat back and thought about it for maybe a couple of hours first, and then responded afterwards. That's what I think really truly happened. You got to believe that somebody like Candace, who, by the way, in a lot of ways, I think may have actually been kind of like been groomed to a certain degree as being what I mean by groomed is actually being taught, being trained how to respond. Remember, she also worked at PragerU at one point in time too, and Turning Point USA. Which makes me think that, a lot of people are saying that she's probably going to get fired over this. I personally don't think that's going to be the case, and I'll explain that further when we get towards the end of the video, because Dinesh D'Souza made some very good points about this, and we'll cover that here in a second. My thinking is that there's a lot of hypocrisy going around, especially in this case here, especially given the fact that Matt Walsh the other day pretty much said the exact same thing.
Israel doesn't need us, we need them. If that's true, then how can you say that in one breath and then in the next breath tell us that it is imperative for the United States to help Israel? I thought you said they don't need us. I mean, they don't need us at all. We could not exist, according to you, and it would make a difference. You cannot say both of those things. You cannot say they desperately need us and also they don't need us.
He's getting no backlash from the Daily Wire crowd. But something else, too, needs to be said. I had to cut it because of the time, because for whatever reason, I got this on my phone, of course, and I got to edit it here. iMovie's not exactly saving things the way I needed to be saved. The original video itself was right around 35, 36 minutes. I wanted to kind of condense it and make it a little bit shorter. As a matter of fact, that's kind of the model going forward. I want to kind of make videos that are somewhere between 15 to 30 minutes. No more, no less. The shorter the video, the worse it does in the algorithm. But the thing is this right here. There's a lot of hypocrisy. And Candace also would mention in her interview with Tucker Carlson, which I will link in the description box, that way you guys can see the whole thing, that the Daily Wire, the new CEO, Caleb Robinson, and a lot more of the personalities there are a little bit more America first. Now, that's important for a reason, because it also makes me think that maybe Ben Shapiro is getting perturbed with the entire ordeal, seeing how it is that he's not really and truly in charge anymore. He helped found the Daily Wire. I want to say he was probably the biggest voice in founding it with Jeremy Boring, but as you guys can probably pick up on, there's probably a lot of people investing in this company. So they're a little bit more America first, and that's who's actually controlling everything, the people who are actually giving the money, the people who are actually putting money into the product itself. And it's probably perturbed Ben Shapiro a little bit more than normal, because Ben Shapiro, for the most part, is establishment. Let's go back to 2016. What did he do in 2016 when Donald Trump became the nominee? He stayed home. He then proceeded to go on Jesse Lee Peterson's show, The Fallen State, and basically say that, we'll let Hillary Clinton be president and we'll just take her out in 2020. And I was sitting there thinking, and by the way, I was originally a never Trumper too. I came around to Trump during right there after he got the nomination. Fact of the matter is what Phil Robertson said about Ted Cruz when he decided to go in front of the Republican National Convention and say, vote your conscience. He basically said, look, dude, you're not on the ballot. I understand you're upset, but you're not on the ballot. At the time, Trump was our best option at keeping Hillary Clinton out of office. And trust me, if Hillary Clinton had won in 2016, she would still be president. Ben Shapiro is great on a lot of the issues, especially when it comes to domestic issues, but his political instincts are absolutely horrific. They are absolutely terrible. He's never called out one single race accurately, and he's been wrong in a lot of cases on anything involving the orange guy. But we'll talk more about that in later videos. Fact of the matter is that a lot of people are looking at this situation. They're thinking that Candace is going to get fired. Well, as I told you, we'll detail that further a little bit later on in the video because, like I said, Dinesh D'Souza made some very good points, which we'll get to here in a second. But the thing that you have to understand about Candace's position is I think she's coming at this from more of a position of, what about us? What about everybody else? I get the whole Israel shtick, and I understand the situation very, very well. I'm a traditional conservative that is pro-Israel. However, I think that Candace makes a lot of very good points. And I think given the fact that we have got this situation here in the United States where we've got an open border, we've got meth and fentanyl coming across our border, we got enemies here at home as well. So we kind of have to learn to walk and chew gum here. And that right there, I think, is the main point that Candace is trying to get across with all this stuff. I don't think she said anything that was pro-Hamas or anything, as you're about to see right here.
I haven't heard you endorsing Hamas. Like you're not. No.
Well, I have not endorsed Hamas in any way, and yet people have interpreted things that I say, or actually rather things that I don't say. It's becoming very much reminiscent to me, and why I have used my platform to say this, of Black Lives Matter, where if you don't say anything, they say your silence is violence. If you say something and it's even-handed and it's nuanced, which is to say, during the times of Black Lives Matter, you might say, I don't support police brutality. Who does? I don't support racism. Who does? But also, I think that police are a crucial part of every city. We need to have policing in cities, so these calls to defund the police are immoral and wrong and are going to lead to more Black deaths. People didn't want that nuance. When following George Floyd, there was no nuance. You had to explicitly say defund the police. You had to post a black square. If you didn't post a black square on Instagram, that it is also sad when an innocent Palestinian child dies. Suddenly, this is pro-Hamas, or you need to say, even when you're talking about how sad it is that a child dies, you need to button that statement by saying, but that child was a human shield. That's not going to be my response. First off, as a mother, that's not going to be my response as somebody who is about to give birth. When I see these images of children involved on both sides of the conflict, I've pointed to the people that are mocking dead Israeli children and said that they are horrific. I am even keel on this matter, and yet people think that you need to be extreme. So people that have become more radical and extreme are perceiving a moderate stance as not enough. And
because I was about to say, people can disagree with you or agree with you or whatever, but you certainly don't seem radical on this topic.
I'm definitively not radical. My stance has not changed in terms of whether or not America should be involved in this conflict.
And that right there, I think, is where the meat of the entire discussion is. Ben Shapiro, right now at this moment in time, sounds like a raging leftist. Now, I've told you guys my positions. You know my positions. I've told you how I feel about the situation. However, I don't believe that I come off as anywhere near as insufferable as what Ben Shapiro has came off as. This guy has been completely unhinged. Exactly what Candace Owens did in her actual tweets. He has been completely and totally, he's lost his mind. Now, let's go back to really quick when he basically said, if you don't want to take the Daily Wire's money, or if you think taking money from the Daily Wire is some type of confliction between you and God, and maybe you should quit. A lot of people have assessed that what Ben Shapiro was doing was basically told her flat out to quit. You can interpret that however you want. I interpret this a little bit different. I interpret this more as a threat, basically saying you need to go along to get along here. That's basically what I'm getting at. But as Candace Owens basically said, Ben doesn't really have that much power. So it could have been a good old-fashioned threat. It could have been something between these two where it's like, hey, look, I really and truly don't want you here. Shapiro, by the way, got upset with her when she basically sided with, when she defended Kyrie Irving and when she defended Kanye West. I mean, he got upset about that. So him getting upset about this one right here does not really surprise me. However, him going into a room where, by the way, he got cheers for saying that that she's been disgraceful. That's right here kind of shows you where Ben Shapiro's his actual loyalties really and truly are. His loyalties, by the way, are not to the United States. But I want to go ahead and say this right here because I've said this in the previous video and other videos I've done on this topic. I don't think he's that loyal to Israel either. Hear me out for a second. Seriously, hear me out for a second. That sounds crazy, but hear me out just for a quick second. You have gone on, Mr. Shapiro, about the situation between Israel and Hamas. You have gone on about this situation over and over and over again on your show. We got to hear it all the time. We understand. We know your position loud and clear. We get it. However, you've also talked about the people who've sent letters to you, emails to you, saying that they're going to Israel to help out with the situation. They're going to be working with patients. And something else, too. Nobody wants to see kids get killed, and I think Candace has got a point. But I also think Candace is not understanding, like a lot of other people online don't seem to understand, that this right is, in fact, a war, and people are going to get hurt. It's a sad thing, and they do use their children as human shields. I mean, the supposed hospital that was bombed, which, by the way, turned out to be the parking lot that was destroyed, and it also turned out to be a misfire, turned out to be a rocket that misfired from Hamas, contrary to what Jackson Hinkle and Keith Woods would lead you to believe. The information came out roughly a day later, which is, of course, what you need to do in war because there's a lot of fog there. These people obviously set the hospital up there for a reason. They built it, and of course, they've got a bunch of tunnels where they keep weapons and stuff under it. So obviously, children are going to be used in are going to be cannon fodder in this situation, as well as a lot of other innocent civilians. So please do us a favor and stop lecturing us on Israel's brutality when they're the ones who lost over 260 some odd people. And to go on top of this, 31 Americans got killed as well, and we've got a rutabaga in office that, quite frankly, ain't going to do anything about that. So please do us a favor and don't lecture us about what Hamas or what the Palestinians are losing. Israel lost a lot too. It's like, I think, the bloodiest day in that nation's history. And I think they have a right to respond the way they're responding. You want to get mad at me for saying that? Fine, go right ahead. Throw your comments in the comment section to see exactly how I'll respond. Nobody wants to see kids get killed, but take it from a combat veteran. This type of stuff does, in fact, happen during war. And if you're going to talk and you're going to preach about war, possibly going to war with people, then you need to have a hardened stomach for that. Now, I know I got a little bit off topic, but let me go ahead and kind of get to this next point. I don't think Ben's as pro-Israel as he says he is, because if he was as pro-Israel as he says he is, he realizes that he's got family and friends in Israel. Maybe what Ben Shapiro should do is put on flak and Kevlar, or maybe he should go over there and volunteer his services. I've said this in previous videos. I mean, dude, you keep talking, you keep running your mouth about it. Why don't you go over there and go defend the motherland, dude? I mean, it would be kind of funny to see him, with them teeny-weeny arms and them skinny-weeny legs walking around flak and Kevlar on a rifle.
Them teeny-weeny arms and those skinny-weeny legs and that so turkey-looking neck.
Which brings me to this next point. Candace bringing up stuff that's going on at universities, colleges, of course, bringing up everything that's going on. She got into it a while back over the whole Vivek Ramaswamy comment, where she got into it with Megyn Kelly. And, of course, the topic was about the possibility of students being, let's say, blacklisted for taking part in these protests. I had a video coming out on that, but the video was going to be about an hour long. It basically asking the question, should college students get blacklisted for their activities? And basically what I had assessed was what should probably happen is that they get kicked out of college for the time being and then brought back maybe a year or two later. I personally believe that a person needs to have some actual real world experience before going to college, because if you have some actual real world experience, chances are you won't be as far indoctrinated, or the indoctrination on you will not be as thick or not be as effective. If you've lived in the real world for a few years, worked an actual job, chances are you'll understand how taxes work. You'll understand how life actually works, and therefore you will be better armed to take on what goes on at the colleges itself. But that right there was a different topic for a different day. And I wanted to kind of just say that Candace, when she basically said that you shouldn't blacklist these kids because kids are stupid and they eventually learn, I agree with her. But at the same time, though, you don't need to be going out there screaming and hollering for dead babies and stuff like that, like the pro-Palestinian students were doing. I believe in a quick punitive action and then forgiveness later on. You got to prove yourself before I can actually bring you back in. That's the way things operate. It's the same thing that I've had with, say Tulsi Gabbard. I got a lot of nasty comments for saying don't trust her right away because she was brand new to conservatism. You got to let the girl kind of prove herself before you just up and take her in. I think Candace, for the most part, has proved herself. So this is a situation where we kind of can take her in, where in the case of Tulsi, we couldn't. I think I touched on this earlier in the video and didn't fully follow through, but it's kind of how I do my videos anyways. But that right there brings us to this final point. So what happens next? Well, Dinesh D'Souza made some very good points about this.
You know, I think what's going on here is that Daily Wire is a fiefdom. And they like to have kind of a stable of people in their team, but who are completely under their thumb. Remember the Crowder business, which happened not that long ago. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was so odd because what would appear to be a private negotiation suddenly erupts into public. Well, why? Well, apparently what Crowder was kind of balking against was the idea of, quote, being owned by the Daily Wire, right? And I think this is what's going on here, is that Candace is a very independent spirit. She's actually got a pretty good ego. She wants to be her own person. And yet somehow she's corralled into the Daily Wire stable, and they expect her to, quote, behave. That is right. I mean, I do think that this is the make or break issue for Ben. Mm-hmm. I think it is the lens through which other issues are filtered. And also, even if you take a position that said something like, this is anti-Israel, but it's not necessarily anti-Semitism. Boom. You've violated the taboo. You're suddenly on the... I think she needs to. She's Candace.
She doesn't need to.
She doesn't need to.
Yeah.
And so I see this as a kind of... I mean, you could have had the philosophical debate without this acrimony. Mm. So it's very interesting that the two have become conflated.
I agree with Dinesh. I think that the Daily Wire is going to want her lockstep. They're going to want her lockstep with a message. However, it wouldn't look good to fire a lady who is 8 months pregnant, about to have a second child, especially going into an election year. And Candace is the type of person where she could probably do what it is that she wants. But this very kind of goes back to the whole Crowder situation, which it doesn't surprise me that they're now going after her. Now, Crowder, by the way, that situation, and I'll stand by those takes to the day I die. Those videos are still up. I'm not going to take them down or anything. I took Crowder's side in the situation of the Daily Wire because, for the most part, he figured out, like everybody else, that Daily Wire is, in fact, controlled opposition. I mean, somebody put this right here up. I think it was a photo of basically showing you everybody who works there as religious preference. And, of course, the one person who's not in lockstep is kind of the one that has got all the say, or at least he thinks he has all the say at that company. But as I mentioned before, they've kind of become a little bit more America first in their actual messaging, probably due to the donors being a little bit more America first. Also, to go on top of this, Candace, like I said, if she wanted to quit the Daily Wire, she could start her own thing. She could go back to Turning Point USA, get more followers there. She could do it on her own, or hell, she could probably be the star that saves InfoWars, because InfoWars is, quite frankly, they're about to go out of business. And then, of course, you've got Tucker Carlson, who, by the way, does, in fact, want to create his own little media brand of other personalities. That's what he wants to do. A lot of people are saying, well, he was going to be vice president. I'm not so sure about that. I think that him showing up to a UFC event with Donald Trump was kind of a bit of a tease for everybody out there. So I wouldn't go in that direction just yet. But the fact of the matter is that what Dinesh D'Souza was saying was correct. They demand her to be in lockstep, and of course they're seeing that she's not going to completely comply with that. But will they actually fire her? I don't think they will. But then again, though, I've been right on this channel before, and I've also been wrong too. So we will see what happens. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys stick around for the weekend. We got the video coming out on the Ethan Klein, Hassan Piker situation. I want to get some more info on that one. That right there will be coming out on Saturday, and hopefully I'll have my identity politics video out on Sunday explaining it, and explaining that what you're seeing right now, the decay and the collapse, is all a result of the pandering to the woke left. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sound off in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.